You heard the high pitch. Hear that buzz?
I'm the community cop. Oh! Oh! Look who we got here.
Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Noel Leader, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here today with two of my co-hosts. First of all, Julian Harper, the legal bookworm.
Welcome, welcome.
Second of all, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And unfortunately, Father Lucas is not here today. He may be on his way, or he may be on Community Cop assignment. But we'd like to welcome you, our viewing audience. This is Community Cop, where talk and truth and real talk occurs. Thank you, Harper. Harper is always my corrector, boy. We'd like to thank you. Sit back. If you can, tell a friend. They can catch the program over the internet, ManhattanNeighborhoodNetwork.org. You know, if you want to invite a friend or a family or a foe to tune into the program, you know, feel free to do that. As is customary, we like to quickly go because there's so much things that happened over the last week. We like to reflect on two great individuals, historic individuals, monumental individuals from the African American community. First of all, Booker T. Washington had a birthday on 5/5/1856. And of course, the great Martin Delany had a birthday recently on 5/6/1812. And Michael, briefly remind our audience about these two historic figures, monumental figures that emanated from our community and contribute so much to this country and to our people.
Well, certainly our political landscape and our social consciousness would not be the same had it not been for the great Martin Delany. Martin Delany is one of the best we've ever produced, Pan-African extraordinaire, conscious abolitionist of the highest order, and certainly Booker T. Washington is one who gave us so much. What a great example of intellectualism, one of the greatest intellectuals we ever produced, certainly an intellectual of intellectuals, scholar supreme. And those two waged some very fierce battles on behalf of our people. Booker T should never be forgotten. Certainly he's one of the forerunners of the Niagara movement that turned into the NAACP. And later on went to Africa, to the most Pan-African country in Africa, which is Ghana. So we should never forget those brothers because truly their mettle was tested time and time again, and they never came up short.
All right, that's Booker T. Washington and Brother Delany. Fast forward to 2015. Last week, so many things happened, in particular in Baltimore, Maryland, which has the eyes of not only the country, but the international as well, over the death of Freddie Gray. Last week, the Baltimore State Attorney Marilyn Mobley had her opportunity in the Sun, and she pronounced that she had plans to press charges against 6 officers, some serious charges. One, highest one I believe was murder, and all the way down to officers making false arrests. Many people in the Baltimore community heralded her decision and the pronouncement that officers were going to face criminal charges. Julian, we'll start with you. There's been a lot of debate on white media as to whether or not she moved too fast, whether or not the charges are appropriate or whether or not she overcharged. But first of all, your opinion or your thoughts on her decision to bring criminal charges to these officers, something that we haven't seen in a progressive city like New York, as of late. For the callousness, primarily for the callousness by which these officers treated Brother Freddie Gray, whom they had in their custody and whom they were responsible for, the callousness by which they treated him, especially not only after causing the injury, but ignoring them. What were some of your thoughts on her decision?
Well, when we talk about this justice system and we talk about the fairness and the equity, I think what she did was appropriate. I mean, when you look at normal citizens who live and work and sometimes commit crimes in this country and in our judicial system, the way it operates, once they feel they have probable cause, they make an arrest and then they prepare for the rest to present it to either a grand jury or in a criminal trial. And I think that based on the information that was obtained during her investigation, she saw fit that there was enough probable cause for her to make an arrest or for there to be charges brought against these officers. So I concur with her. I think it was appropriate for her to do, as her case is going to continue to develop. But based on the information that she had received from her independent investigators, she saw fit that it was time to bring charges against these officers. So I think we should collectively commend her for doing her job as a prosecutor and working for the public. She doesn't only work with the police department, but she has to work for the public as well.
And Michael, these are one of the rare times when you see the white media and members of the white community and others criticize a district attorney. Now, some of that criticism based on the charges are even before they even see her presentation. I mean, of course, she has information which the rest of us don't have. And this is one of the rare occasions that I don't hear a district attorney getting the benefit of the doubt as it relates to the so-called, general, population. She's received some criticism. But what do you feel about the charges that she held against these officers?
Well, I felt that the charges overall were inappropriate. I didn't think that she moved correctly in this situation. I thought that certainly the 3 black police officers in particular, the 2 officers and the black sergeant, the charges are grossly inappropriate. I think that her case is predicated on Goodson, the driver, which makes absolutely no legal sense to me. I think that it's totally inappropriate to give the second-degree murder charge, 2 manslaughter charges, several other charges on assault, and as well as vehicular assault and the several other lesser charges is totally inappropriate. Her case is predicated on what happened in that van. And so I think she's totally off guard. I think we also, I think that millions of people saw him literally limp before it even started, before he even got to the van. He could no longer walk. He lost his faculties of ambulatory faculties, as well as he was screaming like a banshee. So for her to start her charges at the van, totally inappropriate. To ignore those 3 white police officers, what they did to him when they caught him and took him around that corner. What did they do to him around that corner? Out of eyesight of everyone. Whatever they did, it translated into him not being able to walk. If we believe their narrative that he was originally running and now this man can no longer walk, which provoked obviously an inappropriate arrest. But at the same time, you start charging everybody as to the van from that van ride on. To me, it's totally out of order.
Well, I have to disagree with you.
That's fine.
on some of what you said, I agree. I think that, as I said in my original comment, we don't know the information that she has in terms of making her presentation. Mm-hmm. The officer who drove the van might just as well be guilty of murder if his driving of the van, because, those of us in law enforcement know that people attempt to do a whole lot of things when somebody's in the car. If he was injured, and if the officer was so callous as it relates to his injury, and further caused further injury as a way that, intentionally by removing the van in such a way, then perhaps, that he can be charged of this man's demise. If Now, I do agree with you that it's clear to me that Brother Gray was injured by the officers even prior to going into the van. But his demise, he passed away while he was in the van, and it could have. Like, I'm not saying dogmatic because I don't know. My initial point is, in terms of criticism, I don't know the information she has. I don't know the information that her investigation revealed. And time will tell when she makes her presentation, either to the grand jury or in criminal trial, what she actually has in terms of who's responsible for what. The officers were charged with assault. The officers were charged with assault, and they couldn't have been charged with assault while he was in the vehicle. So there is some legal responsibility for their actions when he was outside the vehicle.
And when you talk about officers' culpability when it comes to the injuries he sustained and what caused his death, I don't know. Like you said, we don't know all the information that she has. I'm sure there's going to be, or there may be interviews. There may be someone who wants to come forward and say, well, listen, this is what had happened prior to him coming into my custody, and these were the injuries that I saw him. So we don't know how much more information is going to be revealed and how further this case is going to develop during, because I don't think the investigation is closed right now. So there's going to be further investigation. So there are going to be, at least I believe, possibly further charges or more information that's disseminated to the general public. But when we start talking about an initial response to a horrific demise of a young African man, I'm glad that she has at least stepped in the direction of ensuring there's going to be some type of justice in this particular case. Because if we look back in history on cases that happened in New York, cases that happened in other parts of the country, we hadn't seen this expedient response to the untimely death of one of our youth at the hands of the police. So we have to give credit at least at that point. Now, I also believe that we're in the zygote stages, we're in the beginning stages of what has happened as far as prosecution goes, because we have to look at possible conviction, we have to hope for also sentencing. So there's other portions of this process that we have to concern ourselves with as well. But we do have to give credit, at least I do, have to give credit where credit is due, because she's taken a stance that we have rarely seen in the past.
Well, I don't think that that's a standard to give her any credit for that. I think that somebody died, so given that, the circumstances surrounding that has to be investigated. Now, she ran on changing that culture. Her predecessor would not charge police officers. So in that regard, okay, she's doing her job, as Noel talks about when you talk about giving people kudos for nothing. She's doing her job by charging the police officers as such. But the charges, and that's what I responded to, the questions on whether I agree with the charges or not. I do not agree with those charges. The onus is now on her to get somebody to start speaking out of those 6 police officers. And that's what her case is predicated, because if she can't get the driver on all those vicious charges she charged him with, and he has no contact. He had literally no contact with Freddie Gray at all, and he has the heaviest charges. It's nonsensical to me. It makes no sense, and the lawyers are going to have a field day with that, his lawyers, because he had literally no contact. Not if it's proven on the film or camera somewhere, she have some footage to show there was some contact. Okay, then there's some credibility there. But he has the highest charges and had the least amount of contact with Freddie Gray. So it's problematic from the outset. Then when you consider that the sergeant, the black sergeant, the other black officer, Porter, they had the least amount of contact from what we know. And yet the white police officers who initiated this whole thing, who chased them down without probable cause, even though the Supreme Court allows for the chasing of a person without probable cause in a high crime district. So that's a given, that the Supreme Court has made allowances for that, because they say in an area of affluence, they don't want anybody being chased. In other words, white folks. White folks with money are not going to be chased. So black folks in a so-called crime area or high crime area can be chased without probable cause. The Supreme Court slipped these things in because they're white supremacists also. So we have a condition where he can be chased without probable cause legally. However, he cannot be arrested without any probable cause, without the commission of a crime. And that's what they did. So it starts right there with those 3 police officers. Who knows what they did around that corner, out of sight, and she didn't charge them with those things. Now, that's not to say that she won't do it, but she did not charge them with that, and I just think it's peculiar that the white guys got the least amount of charges, and all the blacks got the heaviest charges, and yet they had the least amount of contact with the person. And for those who think that the vehicle, let's say it was a rough ride, as it's called in Baltimore, even if it was, those injuries are not consistent. That bolt is not even close enough. It's so close to the floor, it's extremely hard for your head to hit that. And he would have such trauma to the head, which he didn't have, by the way, to break the vertebrae, that 3rd and 4th vertebrae, that it's not consistent with that type of injury. It would literally have to shatter his head like an egg to break it. That was broken in advance, or at least damaged to a point where anything was more contributory than being the cause.
Right. All right. Well, well, in terms of her explanation of the charges, whether or not the gentleman who's the driver, you know, his mere contact is the fact that he not only was he the driver of the van, but according to everyone's testimony, he actually stopped the vehicle on 4 separate occasions to check on Brother Freddie Gray's well-being and the callousness by which he responded. Police officers' primary responsibility is the safety of life, the preservation of human life. When you know that somebody's in a stressful situation, when you have observation, and even according to his testimony, he literally stopped the van on 4 different occasions to check on, a few occasions to check on him. And he was so callous in terms of the manner by which he ignored this individual's injury. There goes the, because it's the callousness, the provision of murder that she charged him with, not necessarily. Now, I agree with you. You know, it's clear to me that his vertebrae was broken when the officers had him in the possession. You can just look at the tape and see his inability, right? His inability to walk, and not only that, but he was screeching in pain. So it's clear to me that at that particular juncture, he was suffering from a physical injury. And those officers, that's where me and you definitely agreed. Those white officers, I believe, caused the rupture to the spine as well as the breakage of the vertebrae. But I believe that all officers who observed this individual, because we talked off camera, I've had incidents where I had injured prisoners, and I asked the officer, why is this guy not going to the hospital? When I'm sitting behind the desk, why you bring this guy to my precinct as opposed to the hospital? You see him bleeding. You're supposed to, when you have an injured prisoner, you're supposed to take him, allow him to get immediate medical attention when it's obvious that that's what he needs. So, like I said, I agree with you in terms of the white officers. She did charge him with assault. She did charge him with false arrest because, as you stated, they had the right to chase him. If they had reasonable suspicion, and that's what I imagine, they're going to say that their suspicion level was somewhat reasonable based on the community and the location and et cetera, fine. But in terms of, as you stated, to put him under arrest, and she did charge the officers with false arrest because there was no justification for his arrest. They talked about some knife that they found. She said it was legal. So she did charge the officers with false arrest. She charged the officers with assault. And I believe that they, as you stated, should be charged with the most grievous crime because I believe they caused the injury to his back. It was clear to me when you look at his legs as they was transporting him in the van. And, so.
And I would just say that if you just compare the charges, look, Goodson, 2nd-degree depraved heart murder, that's 30 years. That's involuntary manslaughter, 10 years. 2nd-degree assault, 10 years. Manslaughter by vehicle, gross negligence, 10 years. Manslaughter by vehicle, criminal negligence, 10 years. All of that on the driver, who you got to prove had contact with this man. Obviously, he has a responsibility to check on him. And somebody's talking right now. It's a police officer talking. We don't know who it is, but somebody says something because they have a confirmation to some degree that he requested medical attention.
Right.
He was pleading for his life. His life was fading. This is why all of those officers, on one level or another, are charged with that negligence charge because his life was fading. And they should have all recognized it. Even the sister who came along, the sergeant, should have recognized it. However, look at the lieutenant's charges. Involuntary man, 10 years. Assault second degree, 2 charges of it. 10 years. Misconduct in office and that unlawful imprisonment. It doesn't even compare to what the brother had the least amount of contact with. It's something mysterious about
You don't
that.
have to have contact with somebody, to physical contact with somebody.
No, but
to
I'm
be
just
charged with
saying.
murder.
I'm just saying that she ignored an experience where we saw a little brief thing with his legs rolled back. Now, if his legs is rolled back, we don't know what was happening. He had a crushed larynx. Who got up under there?
And then
Something
back,
happened.
vertebrae in the back, exactly.
The vertebrae
Right.
in the back,
Right.
crushed larynx in the front.
Right. Oh,
Spine,
definitely,
come on now,
definitely.
it's something to that.
Definitely,
And-
but my point
once
is,
he's
but-
on his
but-
feet,
but
he
my
can't
point-
walk.
But the point was with the individual in the van. Depending on what information he has in terms of the recklessness and the intentionality to cause injury, because a lot of times that's what you turn the heat on in the summer, you turn the air conditioner on, you turn the AC on in the winter. You turn the heat on in the summer, and it's to make the prisoner uncomfortable. It's possibly to hurt them. You move it around, especially if they're not strapped in. So, like I said, there's culpability on that individual if what she says is true.
I'm not
hold on a
erasing
second,
that.
And if he further, even if he never touched them, but if the way that he maneuvered the vehicle intentionally to cause injury, because a lot of times that's what they do when they don't strap them in. They want them to flop around, in that van. So,
Well,
there's
let me
a lot
just
of
say this,
culpability.
because we're going back and forth.
Right, and we don't know.
Right, and we're going to get a lot more information as
Right.
this progresses. So, we can speculate right now
Right.
on the little bit of information we do have. So, the debate is understandable, but I think as we get further along in this, we'll get more information and come up with a solid.
But I do agree with you. It's kind of precarious that the white officers.
And you have to remember, we got to also look at the rank structure. This was a lieutenant and 2 white cops that put him in the van.
Right.
Obviously, his word carries. If he put him in there head first, face down, cuffed and shackled, that officer can't overrule that.
No, sir. No,
this
sir.
was a
brother.
lieutenant.
No, sir. If I'm on the scene and the lieutenant asks me to do something.
You and Goodson is different.
Right, but everybody should. But see, you only follow orders when it's a lawful order. If a lieutenant, a captain, the police commissioner himself gives me an order that's not lawful, I'm
I know
ignoring him.
you don't have to follow it.
Right.
However, let's consider this: that they have a long history going back to the former mayor.
Right.
The former mayor who became a governor. I'll give you his name in a second. I think it's McCullough. He's got an Irish name.
Right.
He allowed these kind of things throughout his 8 years. Not only that, he encouraged it, he encouraged mass arrest. Not arrest here and there, mass arrest, even when he became governor, continued in that vein of locking up blacks. That's what he did. That's why Mosby, when she came on, she ran on a campaign of prosecuting bad cops. Also, Mayor Blake ran on a campaign of changing the police culture because black folks in Baltimore was fed up with it. It was so inundated, this police brutality and criminality on all kind of levels. That was common practice not to use a seatbelt. If you look at those 2 sides of those vans that they have, you should seatbelt everybody.
Definitely.
Because they can't protect themselves.
If
So
they handcuff.
anytime you don't do, that's standard procedure. That's what they do. That's why they all got hit with those violations of doing that, because everybody saw it, including the driver. Everybody saw it. Even the sergeant who came by, the other brother who came by saw it. So everybody got hit with that charge because they witnessed it. Even when they took off his regular cuffs and put on the flex cuffs and they put shackles on him, everybody at one time, all 6 of them, witnessed him face down, head first. So I'm not trying to pretend in any way
Right.
Goodson is an angel. I'm just saying, well, how does he end up with the heaviest, most severe charges that will put him away for life, and he had the least amount of contact that we know of as of now? That's all I'm saying.
Right, and I agree in terms of the contact, but if he operated the vehicle in
Yeah.
a callous manner, intensely causing, I don't give a hoot about him. I don't give a hoot about that sergeant. If I was on the scene, I would have said, time out. This guy's going to the hospital because the same callousness that the Baltimore Police Department has on the African American community, Safer had the same callousness, Giuliani had the same callousness, Bratton, Kelly, all of these cats. And in spite of the fact that that was a culture, and that still is a culture in New York City, as well as law enforcement agencies throughout the country, I can give a hoot about an illegal order from a whoever. If somebody being abused or somebody's being, it's time out.
But let me just say
You
this.
know?
But I can just assume.
Because Harper's hit me on my head before.
No, because I can just assume that based on her charges and the way she charged them, if she believes, based on whatever she got from the Emmy's report, that the flailing of him going back and forth in the van is what caused his death, then logically I would assume that that's why she charged the particular officer with that charge. Like I said, this is all just assumptions.
This is assumption,
So
right.
you know, I don't know, but I can see the rationale behind the charges as they were set. So just based on the information that I have, whether it's right or wrong, but just a summary of that information would allow me to understand why she charged the way she did.
But I imagine we all agree that whoever had any role in his brother's demise should spend a whole lot of time in jail. And if they didn't,
Agreed.
equally. And I don't condone, like I said, I understand what you're saying, Michael. And those white officers, those 3 officers who made the initial contact, who made the initial illegal arrest, who, when they lift him up, it was apparently that they caused a severe injury to this brother. He was in severe pain. His legs had no strength, you know, should be severely charged. And, you know, as Julian looking on, well, oh, Lord have mercy.
And I agree with you. I don't want to give people
Right,
the wrong
right. No,
impression.
no.
A 7-minute ride turned into 45 minutes.
Exactly.
He took a strange, circuitous route to get to the hospital. So it's no doubt about it. I'm not trying to protect him
yeah,
at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
And
no
I'm
doubt.
not applying those shallow skin analysis to some no good cops.
Right.
So the black ones they need to go to. If they want to follow their white masters, then fine, the hell with them. They need to go too.
Right.
I'm not saying that at
Right,
all.
of course.
And obviously, he took 45 minutes to get somewhere that would have took 6-7 minutes max.
Right.
So he need to go.
And the hospital was much closer. I'm sorry, Harp.
And I know we got some phone calls because we're getting noticed that we're getting some phone calls. But I just have to say a couple of things real quick. A little sidebar. You know, my condolences go out to Javita Irving, one of our members who have lost her mother today. And
Right.
we love you, and our condolences go out to you. And also another member of 100 Blacks has recently passed, Tammy Dees. And another young brother who's a member of the NYPD, who's a member of 100 Blacks, Royston Ferguson. And also my condolences go out to the young 25-year-old police officer that was shot in the face, Brian Moore, to his family, which was a senseless death. And also there was another female police officer, Katara Zena Arerios, and I'm sure I'm destroying her name. But again, my condolences go out to all these people who have lost family members and loved ones in the line of duty, and just the sense of death. And again, our condolences go out to all of them.
All right, now we're going to go to a phone call. We have Eric Josie should be on the phone from Florida with a perspective on this particular horrific incident. Eric Josie, what's up, brother?
Brothers, how you doing?
All right, right.
100 Blacks in law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Well, I love this topic. I love what we're talking about. I love the energy. And you know what? I just want to bring something to your attention. What you're talking about, you're not just talking just to talking. We did it on the streets of Harlem. I was there 3 o'clock in the morning at 90 Grams School when we stood down a crew, a van of a sergeant, a lieutenant, and a bunch of cops that was about to assault our brothers that was just rapping. You jumped in the middle and said, no, you're going back in your van, you're taking off. And that's exactly what we did. Each and every one of us is sworn office has a duty, a responsibility, and a sworn oath to protect the citizens that we serve. Let me be very clear about that. And anybody that laid an eyeball on that brother while he was hog-tied and popping that van, I had no love for. And Brother Mike, and we had this discussion before, the reason why the van driver is suffering the greatest and most charges is because it's his van. It's his duty. It's his responsibility. Of that van, and who goes in that van, and who seatbelts in that van. He knew that brother was back there hog-tied. It's his van. It's his responsibility. And he omitted his duty, and therefore he should suffer the consequences. Well, I won't let your brother get everybody else talk, but I just wanted to interject that comment.
Right,
Thank you so much.
Okay,
brother.
smooth.
Okay, brother.
All right.
Thank you for your phone call.
And it's so funny, though. Well, you and I just talked about the incident that Eric mentioned
Right.
when you guys were working in the 2-8, and you saw I think it was a lieutenant, a sergeant, and some cops
Yeah.
about to abuse
Yeah.
some young men in our community, and you stood strong, and you weren't even a sergeant at the time, you were
I
a
was an
police
officer.
officer. And you stood up to that sergeant and that lieutenant. And you know, and both of us, we stand up to bosses on many
Exactly.
occasions for trying to or attempting to abuse our community. And then at times there's repercussions behind
Right.
it. But you got to be willing to take that to stand up for what's right. And brother, I commend you for doing what you did.
Right, right. They had on, Eric Josie will tell you, they had on black gloves, all of them, and nightsticks in their hand. And they was getting ready, and this group of young kids wasn't doing nothing. They was in the circle rapping and enjoying themselves. It was a nice summer night. And we seen them, we knew they was about to do something. So we stood between the group and the cops. And like you said, it was supervisors in there. And I told all of them, y'all better go back to where y'all came from. Y'all ain't doing nothing to these kids.
That's right,
You
that's
know,
right.
and because they knew we was right, they backed down.
Right.
None of the bosses said anything to me. They looked at me and they took a walk. But but thank you, East Move, for your phone call. And Julian was right on point with all the condolences that he laid out. There's been a lot of unfortunate incidents that have happened as of late, and we all those individuals, our prayers go out to their family and their loved ones. But we also wanted to talk about Bill Bratton.
Right.
He's coming strong because he's one of the culprits in this animus attitude, accelerated animus attitude, because it always exists. It's historic between police and the African American community. There's no animus attitude between the community and police because the overwhelming majority of people in our community respect police when they do a good job. But the police historically has had this attitude against our community. Bill Bratton, he's against this movement to decriminalize a lot of these minor crimes and these minor offenses. Some of them aren't even crimes, they're just offenses where people are getting arrested. There's a movement in the city council to not arrest individuals for these minor violations, like being in the park after dusk, urinating on the street, et cetera, et cetera. Julian, what are your opinion on your police commissioner's insistence on this broken window concept?
Listen, I have. This is my opinion. Two things. First of all, there are broken windows in the African American community, in the black and brown community, and there's broken windows in the white community. So if you're going to police them the same way, I can understand that. But the problem I have when we're talking about the city council talking about decriminalizing some of these offenses, and as Noel stated, they're offenses. They're not. Some of them are not even crimes. So when we start talking about the response to them, they should be responded to accordingly. So when we talk about someone in the park after dark, now maybe that's something that we as a community may oppose, but there's a different way to handle it. There's other ways to respond to it. We don't have to put our youth in jail for being in the park. You can ask them to leave the park. It's a real simple solution to a problem. I don't agree with people urinating in the street, but if we're going to give them a fine and that's how we're going to respond to it, let's respond to it that way. We're not talking about people going to jail and spending weeks and months in jail for these offenses. So we really have to revisit how we deal with them. And like I said, my biggest concern is we have to respond to broken windows downtown the same way we respond to them uptown.
I'm pretty sure Brandon tell you ain't going to happen.
We need to get rid of broken windows. It's a racist,
Exactly.
white supremacist ideology.
Right.
It ain't nothing about modifying it. We need to get rid of it. Because it's nothing, it leads to mass incarceration. That's what it's to do. Control black people's movement. That's the whole philosophy out of these white think tanks. So.
And if we, if you really have confidence in police officers, and if it was possible for police officers to actually be professional,
Right.
Just let them do what they have to do.
Right.
And you make a determination based on the incidents. But, because, our community is targeted, it's always been like that, for these aggressive, overbearing law enforcement practices,
And let me just say this very quickly. Let me be very quick. When you talk about broken windows, that's just a name that they use. That's just a phrase and a term that they use. I don't want anybody urinating in front of my house. I'm telling you right now.
Right.
So I think the masses of people don't want that as well. So when we respond to things that we talk about, and I'm going to call them infractions, there's a way to respond. So we want to call it, and that's their term, broken windows. But when we talk about these infractions that most people don't want occurring, because I don't think anybody in here would want to see their wife or their loved one standing in their window and someone urinating in front of their house, that's a problem.
Right.
So we do want responses, but we want an appropriate response.
Right, and incarcerating people
Is not the
is not the
response.
appropriate response.
Exactly.
All right, we've had so much other things we want to talk about, but we're at the section where we open up our telephone calls. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
This is Brother. I'm calling from Flatbush.
Okay, the Bush. How you doing, brother?
All right, I've got one question. I got two comments to make.
Yes, sir.
And I commend that woman in Baltimore for bringing those cops on charges. Because that is something that's new in that racist society. And I commend it. They're going to shoot her down because for any reason it's a first case in that kind of field and all that. That's the first thing they're going to do. But don't be getting your hopes up because she's indicted. All right? The second thing I want to say is, believe it or not, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. That cop that was shot in Queens, I have feelings for his family and all that, but if they lived in the neighborhood, he would have been different. I think if you live in the city, you work for the city, you should live in the city. People, our problem is we have too many people, in our neighborhood, police in our neighborhood, that don't live in there, don't have no stake in that community. When you have stake in the community, you do a better job.
All right. I think we all agree with that. We wish the community, the police always reflected more of the community that they serve, and we believe that makes a better police officer, better relationships, et cetera, et cetera. But thank you for your call, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hotep.
Hotep, brother.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. I want to say a shout out to Noah Leader, Julian Harper.
Hotep, brother.
I totally I respect your comment, Michael Graves, but I gotta respectfully disagree.
That's okay.
As far as you, but I feel you because I think it's just I don't know the politics behind it, but I think Marilyn Mosby set it off, and I think there's some type of underlying tone there. My question to you would be, do you think this will set a precedent in the future? Reinstate automatics, Hotep, be well.
Okay, thank you.
And also I want to say I do give condolences to all the beautiful black people. The unknown and known who've been murdered, and my heart goes out to that young man. I can't even fathom what happened to him. It was 2015 lynching. It was horrible. So it's and my heart goes out to that cop. He didn't deserve that, and no cop and nobody, whether we're in the community, no matter what color we are, we don't deserve to be shot in the face and killed like that.
All right.
Reinstate automatics, and you brothers be safe. Love you. Be well.
Love you
What's
too,
up,
brother. Thank you for your phone call, like always.
Well, I'll say that you have to remember, and we need to be attentive listeners. I responded to the question as it was asked about what did I think of the charges. Now, if you ask me what do I think of her, I think her act, the act of charging 6 police officers, certainly is unprecedented and commendable. I love the fire in her. I love her heart. I love that internal intestinal fortitude that she demonstrated in front of all of those journalists. I like the fire. Black women are strong, and yet the ones we elect are weak and tired and fall into the same thing that the men do. They basically get in there and do nothing. Well, she did something. The clarion call went out, and she said she heard it. So I give her that. She's strong, extremely intelligent. She said she comes from a tradition because she already knew in advance that the FOP was going to be on her tail. So what did she say? She said that her mother and father are police officers. Her aunts and uncles are police officers. Her grandfather's a police officer, and started a black police group in Massachusetts. So she definitely fortified her position correctly in case they talking about a special prosecutor or moving it out because it won't be fair. She showed she was fair and upright and extremely intelligent, but that wasn't the question that was asked. The question was specifically about the charges. My problem with her are the exactness, as the messenger said, be right and exact. The charges to me are not right and exact. So Elijah Muhammad said to be that way, it wasn't right and exact. However, the fire, the strength, what she had, it makes the mayor look weak as she is because she's allowed this thing to happen. She kept that Commissioner Batts, Police Commissioner Batts, who's supervised all of these homicides over the years, allowed him to stay there. The mayor should have fired him first. Now, if Mosby was the mayor, she would have fired that police commissioner based on her actions because she's upright and she's honest and all her eggs is in the right place. And she comes from a tradition of police officers, so she's not afraid to act. The problem is the mayor in this position, but that wasn't the question that was asked. It was about the prosecutor herself, and I support what she did. It's just that you can't ignore that man yelling and screaming.
Okay, brother. Okay,
Something's
brother, come
wrong.
on. All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling for Harlem, gentlemen.
Hotep, brother.
This only further supports what I've been saying for years about the black and Hispanic police officers on the police force, and not all, but a large percentage. They fall in line with these white officers attempting to prove their worth as law enforcement officers when they commit the wrong against us. Then what really bothers me is when the black and brown law enforcement officers from the community want to come out and say they're being discriminated against, and then they lose our ear to the problem they're having because of some fact we participated in the wrongs towards the black and brown community. Now, when something bad happens to you on the job, you want our support, and you've got to take a Quinnipiac poll and find out the black people and brown people, we don't really resent police. We just hate the policies that are geared towards just policing us. I think there should be more politicians, and when you guys were naming police commissioners, you forgot my favorite of all time, Bernard Dirtbag Curry. You understand? The top cop that went to jail, and every top official under his administration, when he was police commissioner, should have been locked up too, because they all knew what was going on during his process. I was once a victim of the same thing that young man was.
Okay,
He was
brother.
back of a police car and being subjected to a police officer intentionally running 3 red lights with the intention of causing me to smash my face into a case. And that's all I want to share with y'all. Hold that, and we just take a hold to that.
Okay, Hotep, thank you for your call, brother. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Assalamualaikum.
Where you calling from, brother?
Calling from Harlem.
Okay, quick question, comment.
Yes, brother. This is my view. If it's okay for white people to kill black people, it should be okay for black people to kill white people. First of all, this faggot, de Blasio and Lynch, they don't give a hell about when black people get killed. And they want the community to come up and feel sorry for these crackers when they get killed. They are their damn line. I take my hat off to the sister, the attorney general in Baltimore, because it took a lot of heart for the sister to do what she did. And Brother Mike is right on point, but the sister is trying to do what she had to do, and these devils are dead on her. So y'all brothers keep doing a good job. And remember, these devils are going to keep doing the same thing until we return the same to them. That's the only way to understand.
All right, thank you for your call, brother. But as you said in your original statement, it's not all right for white people to kill black people. So, you know, and I know that's what you're saying as well. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm making Harlem.
Okay, Hotep, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, all right. Listen, what all y'all have put together is right and exact. And like Brother Mike said, you know, that was done outside. Those knees on the back of that man's spine did it.
That's right.
When they dragged him to that car, he was already a done deal. You
Right.
understand?
Right.
They talk about the effect, but what about the cause? The mayor, she's off the hook because she ain't even representing like she should be. And like you said, that sister should be. But she's putting all that weight on them brothers who drove the car. He was 85%. He was already gone. But they put him in the way.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? But we're just looking at this thing because they started from the neck, now they're working down the spine. So may Allah continue to bless you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Peace and love.
Thank you for your
Assalamu
Lakeland's on, brother. Thank you for your call, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Harlem.
Okay, Hotep.
Okay, I have a question for all three of y'all gentlemen up there. What can y'all offer the community to show that these cops are being held accountable? Because the things we're seeing now, it's not working. You know what I'm saying? The brother in the middle, I agree with what he said totally about the cops in Baltimore. Now, black cops should not be facing all of the charges. It should be the white cops, because they did most of the damage to that man anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And to be humble with you, one of y'all three need to get back to the community because Brown House Shelter is done in, and we're definitely not behind the Blasio no more.
Right.
He is slowly losing our support.
All right.
Believe that.
All right.
It's coming.
Okay. Thank you for
You know
your.
what I'm saying? So I hope one of y'all got some mayor real soon because we need somebody like y'all.
Right. Okay. We need a black political party in New York City. But thanks for your call. All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling, my name is Dave, I'm calling from Astoria.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome. Quick question or comment?
Okay, I want to you guys a tale of two black female cops. The sergeant over in Staten Island that didn't do anything to help Eric Gardner. And there was a case where this female black cop, she was in Buffalo area. I think she had maybe a few months before she was going to get her pension.
I know her. I met her.
Okay.
We told.
Okay, so and what happened was this white cop kept beating up on this black gentleman. And she held him, and for her doing that, she got fired. And I don't know, I haven't looked up the computer since that happened, so I don't know if, I know they were trying to raise an awareness for her to get her job back so she could do her 20 years and retire with a pension. So this is a tale of two black female cops, a sergeant that could have done something on the Eric Garner case. She chose not to, and the female cop in Buffalo, who had a few months before she was going to retire, who did something, and she got fired.
Right, okay, brother. Right, okay.
Thank you very much.
Excellent point, brother.
You're absolutely right.
It's so funny.
Hold on, let me just respond to this. I met the sister. The sister's a beautiful sister. She not only got in between, she really stopped the cop. He was weighing somebody out, beating her down, and she stopped him. He turned around in front of a lot of cops, including black cops, and struck her and broke her jaw. That's what he did. He broke her jaw. She was not able, I think she hurt her shoulder also, and she was not able to even work after responding to work the next day. She was out sick, and they put heat on her for stopping the cop, but used the reason that she could not report the work and said she was faking an injury just to stay out, and they used that to go after her. And them black cops that was there did not support that sister. And that's why we need 100 blacks all over the place, because these kind of things are just unconscionable. And that's a good sister, good heart. And she reached out to us. I spoke to her on several occasions and went up there and met her in Buffalo. So definitely what you're saying is absolutely right. She's different from that sister in Staten Island who saw Eric Garner life being taken and did nothing.
Well, very quickly, one thing about black police officers, some of them are actually afraid to do what they're supposed to do, what they're sworn to do, and what they're mandated to do. And I commend that sister that Mike was talking about and that you mentioned for doing what was right. But if you speak to black law enforcement officers that are present, retired, I speak to them frequently, and a lot of them talk about they were actually afraid to stand up and do what was right for fear of losing their job and not being protected by other police officers they work with. But I say that they were mandated to do what was right. They should always do what was right, and forget about whether these officers are going to support them or respond appropriately to what they do.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Queens. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hotel, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Some strong black men who are not afraid to stand up.
Yes, sir.
Here for each other and one another, as we stand up for Caucasian people going to foreign countries to kill and die for them. The American civil liberties, those are a bunch of snakes. I don't know where they came from, but they had no justice for us in this country. Bloomberg, he had told people, well, he spoke out and said that people in Baltimore should just chill and wait for the law to take the law just to take his place. But we saw what happened over here in Eric Garner's case, where we sat back. Well, we didn't sit back. With the leaders got a bus ride on a boycott. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that what happened in Baltimore, we got a indictment, but I hope charges and conviction come about.
Right. And sentencing. All right, excellent.
That's
All right, that's right. That's right. Thank you for your phone call, brother. Next phone call. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, sir. Calling from Harlem, bro.
Hotel, brother.
Okay. Listen, I just want to emphasize this point, this thing, especially coming from Baltimore. My knowledge, these people tried to import the crap, the Manhattan Institute crap that was going on in New York.
Absolutely.
And the junior, they tried to import that to Baltimore. One time, they were arresting as many as 10,000 people per month, and they were paying out millions of dollars for, and these are for like minor violations, and Chicago, they're doing similar stuff. And Baltimore, with a population of about 660,000 people, they're making over 100,000, 160,000 arrests.
Right.
And Chicago, in 6 months, they made 250,000 of these stop and frisks.
Right.
And they were being told that even if you can't arrest, even if you don't have probable cause, even if you don't have reasonable suspicion, make contact with them anyway.
Right.
This is what they
Okay.
were being
Okay. All
told.
right. Thank you, brother. We got it. You know, but the worst case scenario of all of the states that you mentioned is New York City. When you talk about 250,000 down there, we were doing. New York City Police Department was stopping over 600,000 annual. And those only documented. So New York City is the worst out of all of these departments across the country. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes. Where you calling from?
I'm going home.
Okay, Hotep. Quick question, comment.
Remember what last week I called and I said, don't they always blame the victim? Right? That was last week.
Right.
That very next day, what the story came out from the Washington Post.
Right. But that's
that
good.
Freddie Gray
Yeah.
injured himself.
Right. That's
Right?
garbage.
He inflicted those injuries on himself. Now, when they killed Eric Garner in Staten Island, wasn't the police saying that they didn't want a special prosecutor?
Right,
Now,
yeah.
isn't this ironic?
Right.
All of a sudden, in Baltimore, the police, they want a special prosecutor.
Yes, sir. Black DA, a black state prosecutor.
So ironic, right? When we was in slavery, right? When we went after slavery, they told us to get away from them. And guess what? We had did that. We had did exactly what they asked us to do. We got away from them and we started building our own little towns and villages. And then as soon as our little towns and villages became prosperous and the lessons of Hakai, what did they do?
Right.
They came to us.
Right.
They came to us.
Right.
After they told us to get away from them, they came to us. And
Okay.
they burned down our villages and our towns.
Okay, got your point, brother. We
After
got
they came prosperous.
excellent, brother. We got your point. Excellent
Well, let
point.
me just say something. It was not only individual whites that did that. That was the federal government and the state apparatus that destroyed a lot of prosperous black communities, and we need to be aware of that. And by the way, the guy's name is Michael Malloy, the guy who used his position as mayor and governor to mass incarcerate our people.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Caller, you on the air?
I'm on the horn.
Yes. Where you calling from?
In the house.
Brooklyn. Okay. Quick question or comment,
Right.
sister.
Okay.
Well,
I have two questions.
we're winded down.
On a local level, when we deal with this issue about quality of life, crimes, first things first. We don't want people urinating in front of people's houses, like the brother said. But more so, let's just deal with two in particular. Hanging out in the park after dark. Do you know in the Essex Stuyvesant community, there's a large Hasidic community who are now living by the Marcy housing area, and a lot of them hang out in the park. The very people who've been living there for 40 years, the blacks and Latinos, they were in fact accosted by the police for hanging out in the park. Guess what? Marijuana, all the down Franklin Avenue, where all the whites are moving into Town Heights and Bed-Stuy, washing in the air. The police are standing out there. They're not arresting them. But you go to Notion Avenue, police are locking those
Right,
blacks
right.
to round up.
Right. All right.
When they talk about making these changes, they're not talking about making the changes for the indigenous people who've been living here 50, 60 years. They're talking about making these changes for the people who are
Right.
moving in.
Okay, excellent point. Excellent point, sister. Excellent point. Thank you for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Call from Harlem. Good evening, gentlemen.
Okay, quick question, brother. We wind it down.
I know, brother. Listen, all I wanted to say really was that police officers need a safe haven to go to if they see things that are not right. We need more brothers like you sprinkled up. You guys sprinkled throughout the police department because the blue wall of silence is not a wall anymore. It's a damn skyscraper, and we need to get these bad police officers. I don't care whether they're white, black, or whatever, because police brutality comes in all colors.
Right, okay,
Good evening, gentlemen.
excellent point. But we'll take our last caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Your last caller.
Hello?
Where you calling from?
Out of the Bronx?
Okay, the boogie down. Quick
Okay,
question.
yes, spoke to CBS. You can call and confirm with their Rhode Island headquarters. They will rebuild. I pointed out to them that they received a whole lot of publicity off of that, tens of millions of dollars. So they're going to rebuild. They say they want to rebuild. They're going to rebuild.
All right, thank you.
And lastly,
Rebuild what?
if people are on the
CBS.
force and they're not of the caliber.
Hello?
Oh, sound like we lost the call.
Did we lose a call? Okay, I'm sorry, caller, we lost you, but we're at the tail end of the program, so we'll wind down.
we see what the problems are. We really got to start talking about solutions. We got to plan. We got to strategize. We got to start holding our elected officials accountable. And again, to everyone that I mentioned earlier, to the families, I give the condolences. The officer that was shot in the face, our 100 black family members, we love you. We got a lot of work to do, and here on Community Cop, we're going to keep working, keep planning, and keep strategizing. Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. Big sis, I love you. Leader family, love to you all. We'll keep working.
Thank you.
With respect to CVS, they was following people around the store and harassing black customers. The check cashing place was charging people 20% to cash their check. That's 20 cents out of every dollar. So they were not exactly angels either, neither of those places, and they were not ours. So just keep that in mind and consider that. Also, just big ups to CMOTEP, one of its leaders, Betty Dobson, is getting ready to leave New York. And so we need to look forward to May 31st. It's at the Life Center. May 31st is going to be a big celebration for Betty Dobson, Reinstate Automatics.
All right. On behalf of Community Cop, our engineers, Veronica Kitt, Sheila Berry, I think Sierra is in the control room as well, and Nat Woods. We know you're a little bit under the weather, brother. Our prayers go out to you, hoping that you will join us quickly because we miss your presence, we miss your energy, your commentary, et cetera, et cetera. But we'd like to thank you, our viewing audience, Little More. I love you, the Harper family, the Leader family, the Graves family, all your families out there. Continue watching, continue calling, sharing, asking questions. Keep your eye on the prize, because it's not just about an arrest. It's about a prosecution, a conviction, and sentences. All of those officers are paid severely if they had anything to do, if they contributed in any way to the death of this young brother who did absolutely nothing wrong. And, so the community has to stay ever vigilant and make sure that justice is done in this case. And like the brother said, they're going to try to move this case out of the town because they don't appreciate having a black prosecutor, just like they did in the Bronx when Robert Johnson was prosecuting some police officers. They always want their cases prosecuted.
That was in Diallo.
In the Diallo case, they always want their case prosecuted when they make an arrest. But then when they're arrested, they have no confidence in black prosecutors.
And you know what? It's very clear.
And it's hypocritical.
Right, and it's very clear. If we're going to talk about having a special prosecutor, let's have them in all cases, and we'll never have this problem.
Exactly. And police unions are the outspoken to protest against the appointment of special prosecutors. This system is so hypocritical, and at the core of it all is white supremacy. At the core of it all is all racism, because you can pinpoint, when you see two parallel examples, two parallel comments or situations, one black, one white, the opinions and the response and the reaction is totally different. These unions now calling for a special prosecutor because they have a black prosecutor that they're not comfortable with.
And when that sister, they called and talked about how they do in the parks in Brooklyn, 100% correct.
Right. See you next Tuesday. Peace.